Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
In this lecture, we will be discussing the important questions from the first topic of the 12th chapter. Why does a moving ball stop? So students, a moving ball stops due to friction between the surface of ball and the ground. The friction acting between the two surfaces in contact, which are the ball and the ground, is responsible for the stopping of the moving ball. Is it difficult to walk on a smooth or a wet floor? Basically, students, it is difficult to walk on a smooth floor because when there is a smooth floor, the friction is reduced. So as the friction is reduced, it becomes difficult to walk because the points of contact and the irregularities are reduced. And on a wet floor, there is water present between your feet and the ground, which ultimately reduces friction. Due to that, walking on a smooth or wet floor is difficult. What is the direction of the force of friction? The direction of the force of friction is always opposite to the direction of motion. Basically, if the ball is moving in this direction, the friction will be just opposite to it. The friction acting will be in the opposite direction of the motion or the earlier force applied, right? Where does the force of friction act when a book is slided over the table? The force of friction acts in the opposite direction, and it takes place at the spot where the book and the table are in contact. Alright, so that is where friction works. How does a spring balance work? So students, let us go into the definition directly. Spring balance is a device used for measuring the force acting on an object. It consists of a coiled spring which gets stretched when a force is applied to it. This is the coiled spring. This is the spring, here. This expands or stretches whenever there is a force applied on the end. The stretching of the spring is measured by the pointer moving on the graduated scale. There is a pointer which moves on the graduated scale. The reading on the scale gives the magnitude of the force, right? So this is how spring balance works. In the given pictures, what do you observe? This can easily be a 3-mark question, right? So look at the pictures. In the picture 1, there is a boy who has put a cardboard on a table and he is sliding a cell from mark A to mark B, right? While in the second picture, the boy has kept a cloth on the table and then he is trying to slide the cell from mark A on the table, but it does not reach as far. It only reaches point C, which is somewhere in the middle of A and B. So this tells us that the cloth increases friction. The cloth increases friction, due to which the speed is reduced and the cell stops way before the point B, which was at the end of the table, right? So we understand that smooth surfaces produce less friction, while rough surfaces produce more friction. Alright, so the next question is, why is friction caused? What happens when the two surfaces in contact are pressed harder? Friction is caused due to the irregularities on the surface of the two objects in contact. This is how friction is produced. Then what happens when two surfaces are in contact and they are pressed harder? The friction is increased. And hence it will be even more difficult to move them now. Out of a rough surface and a smooth surface, which surface is supposed to cause more friction? The rough surface will cause more friction due to the presence of more irregularities. This is the factor. Fifth question, what is the difference between static friction and sliding friction? Which one has the higher magnitude? So let us just study here. The force required to overcome friction at the instant an object starts moving from rest, as you can look at the picture. The force required to overcome the friction at the instant an object starts moving from rest is called as static friction. On the other hand, the force required to keep the object moving with the same speed is the measure of sliding friction. So 1 mark each for definition and 1 mark for the answer, which is asking that which friction is higher. Basically, static friction is much more, because here the two surfaces are very much in contact and the irregularities are locked in, right? But when the object is already moving, there is not much time for the irregularities to come in contact and block. So that is why an object which is already moving is easier to keep it moving, while to make a static object to move. So static friction is much higher than sliding friction. Alright.